What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. The game has been open for nearly 2 weeks at this point, so it's been a little while since I did my first draft video, so it's time to give you a bit of an update, what my current draft is looking like, which players have kind of gone out of the team, which players have come in, why that is, what the strategy is, but also talk on some of the disadvantages, because every draft, no matter how good it looks, is always going to have some kind of advantage, but also some disadvantage as well. So we're going to talk through all that, and at the end I'm going to go through a 3 premium player draft as well for those of you trying to get in Salah, Haaland and one of Kane or Son too. So there's a lot involved in this video. If you enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you are new around here as well. Let's jump into it. Okay, so just a quick reminder of what the first draft looked like. So it was a 5 at the back formation, which were extremely popular this year. Perisic was the cheapest defender there at 5.5. 2 £8 million midfielders in Saka and Diaz in a 5-4-1 formation. Harry Kane up front on his own, with Raya as the 4.5 million goalkeeper, just helping fund the rest of the team with a cheap bench. Now, in defence, I've still got Trent, James and Chilwell in my current draft, but it's a 4 at the back formation. But I do have Gabriel on the bench, at least for game week 1. Now, that is quite a bit of money to have on your bench, and as I said in the intro, I want to talk through advantages and disadvantages of a squad like this. So if we're looking at Arsenal defenders, and money's no object, Gabriel right now is probably the best option. I think you could make a case that, you know, when he's fit, Tierney is better, but having owned Tierney a couple of times the last few seasons, he does get prone to picking up injuries, and then you're forced into a transfer, and Gabriel just might be better. He has decent goal threat as well from set pieces. Obviously, Tomiyasu is a very good 4.5 million option, but Gabriel is just better, right? If you only want to spend 4.5, of course, you would just get Tomiyasu. If you've got the money, Gabriel's there instead. Now, a couple of things I like about having that bench position with a bit more money. One, if a player gets injured and is only going to miss kind of 1 to 2 games, you don't really want to transfer them out, either because they themselves have good fixtures or you've got a more pressing transfer to do, then Gabriel can just step in and you can bench that player for 1 or 2 games, whatever it ends up being. The other thing is as well, if any of the players in the first 11 don't have a great fixture in any given week, Arsenal's opening fixtures are pretty good. So again, Gabriel could step in and make a 5 at the back, but it doesn't have to be that every week. And you'll see why he's on the bench for game week 1 when you see the rest of the team. So that's why Gabriel's in there. That's the advantages. The disadvantages, of course, you've got less money spread around your first 11. You've also got your money spread a little bit more thinly. And so if there is a bandwagon that you want to pick up early and you need to get funds to make that move, if it's anywhere more than $1 million, because obviously you could do Gabriel down to Nico Williams, you might have to be forced into multiple transfers. So I think if I do go for a squad like this and a setup like this or a structure like this, then I've got to kind of hold my nerve if there are any bandwagons early on and just accept that I've chosen this team for a reason. So again, advantages and disadvantages for having Gabriel on there. By the time the game week 1 deadline comes, maybe that will just be Nico Williams like everyone else, but I do like him as an option. In the actual defence, Trent, James and Chilwell are still in there. You know Trent's going to be in every draft. You see from me, he's an incredibly valuable defender. So he's definitely in. I really rate James and Chilwell as picks. Again, 4 at the back, 5 at the back. I don't really care. I'd prefer them as wing backs, of course, because they're so important to how Tuchel attacks. But even if they do play 4 at the back, they should be fairly nailed. I'm also not massively worried about Chilwell's injury because I think he will have had a pre-season under his belt, and he is by far the best left back at Chelsea. And he's going to want to play. He's going to want to win that England spot back as well, that left-back spot. So I think they're going to both start the season pretty well. And I feel like they could both be 6.5 million. So 6 million feels fairly cheap for me. If I was going to drop one, I'd drop Chilwell. Right? I think James is the best defender at Chelsea. And also, by the way, Koulibaly is now done, right? He's a Chelsea player. They're still looking at possibly Koundé or Kimpembe as well, if I can get all the names right. Again, some of those deals might be done by the time you watch this video, but either way, Chelsea mean business again this year, and they are making that defence even better, whether it's 4 at the back or 5 at the back. They were already one of the best defences in the league anyway, so I want a piece of that because I just know how good James and Chilwell are. I just want to quickly talk about the fact that Perisic is out of the draft as it stands. One thing I'll say, because you see it when people talk about players as if they own them, right? Or you put out a draft and it's like, why is this player missing? Why is that player missing? Like, why aren't you going for them? You can put them back in, okay? That is okay. If I decide that by game week 1, Perisic actually looks like a great option, I will go for him, but At the moment, I don't think he's in full training yet for Spurs. He hasn't played any minutes in pre-season. Again, they will have more pre-season games for him to get up to speed. But if that doesn't happen soon, I feel like there's not a guarantee that he definitely starts the season. And Sessegnon, although he might not be as good, and Conte, I'm sure, prefers Perisic, he might get the first kind of 1, maybe 2 games. There could be some rotation there. It just worries me a little bit. But if Perisic starts to play good preseason minutes, looks good, looks fit, etc., then they'd probably go back in the draft. Because I do think for 5.5 million, he's a great option. But at the moment, he's picked up that injury right at the end of his time at Inter Milan, and he hasn't started playing any minutes for Spurs yet. So that is on my mind, which is why he's not in there. And I've got Diaz and Ederson because I do think there's plenty of clean sheets for Man City. I mean, throughout the season, but the early fixtures are so good for them. I don't think there's too many teams in their opening 6 that I'd be worried about them conceding. Obviously, they will. They're not going to keep 6 clean sheets in 6. But I think when you look at the fixtures they've got, there's plenty of opportunities there. Yes, I would love Cancelo instead, and yes, right away I could do Gabriel down to Nico Williams and do Diaz up to Cancelo. That is an option I will explore, but I think Diaz is also pretty decent. I think he's pretty much going to be nailed on. Stones hasn't gone to the pre-season tour with Man City. They haven't said why. I mean, there's a lot of people speculating why, and I kind of agree that probably is the reason, but he hasn't gone, and I think Laporte might have picked up a minor injury as well, or might be struggling a little bit. So again, pre-season might change that, but Diaz is pretty much nailed, and for 6 million, I think he's a good option. And then you've got that double Man City defence with Ederson in there as well. I do think when I build drafts, if I ever need money, the goalkeeper is usually the spot I'll take it off. And the reason I haven't gone for Alisson is because I've got 3 other Liverpool players, whereas I think with Man City, the attacking spots in particular, you can't necessarily lock down a definite kind of guaranteed start every single week outside of maybe De Bruyne, possibly Harden as well, and obviously they're expensive. So locking that 3rd Man City spot with Ederson doesn't feel quite as bad as locking it with Alisson, which is why he's in there. And I just think there's plenty of clean sheets all around. There's no real reason to look outside the top 6 for defenders, so that's why I've chosen the ones I have. So in the midfield, 3 of the players from the first draft make the second one as well. So that's Salah, Neto, Diaz. We'll talk about Leon Bailey in just a sec. I think Salah is like super obvious pick, right? And you're going to see him in every single draft that I do, along with Trent Alexander-Arnold. And Salah will be pretty much my Game Week 1 captain against Fulham away. That's almost locked in. I'd say 99.99% sure. Neto's still in there as well. I'm still not sure there's a better 5.5 million midfielder. There are ways to upgrade him in this team. So Ederson could go down to a 4.5 or a 5 million pound goalkeeper. Gabriel could go down to a 4.5 or even a 4 million pound defender. Potentially I could get 2 million out of those 2 spots. Right, just have a cheap bench option and just play Raya or Sanchez or Meslier, whoever it is in goal, and upgrade Neto. But when you start going above 5.5 million, I don't know if there's too many guaranteed points. So I'm looking at the list right now. Sancho at 7.5. Do I want to trust that from the start? I don't necessarily like Coutinho at 7. Zaha at 7, the fixtures are really bad. Barnes is okay at 7 if you're going to play regularly, but I think Maddison might be the better option. I don't really like Leicester fixtures either way. Grealish, I'm not sure about minutes. Odegaard, probably not going to go into my team at 6.5, etc., etc. The 6.5s that are quite popular are going to be like Eriksen, Rashford, maybe Sinistera at Leeds. But with Man United, I'm not sure on Rashford and Eriksen's minutes. I think eventually, yes, Eriksen could play off the left, off the right, or Fernandes could do that and Eriksen could play 10. Then there's one less reason to have someone like Rashford in the team. But I'm not sure exactly how Man United are going to line up, so I can't put them in right now. And with Sinistera, it just feels like 6.5 million for a Leeds player to punt on early on. I'm just not sure about it. So I don't see right now too many upgrade options for Neto. Again, I'm open to be convinced. And people keep talking about how expectations are too high. My expectations for Neto are close to 0. If he got like 2 to 3 returns in the opening 6 fixtures, I would absolutely take that right now. I'm not expecting him to get 6 goals in the first 6 or even 6 attacking returns in the first 6. I just don't see a better 5.5 million player right now with those fixtures who should be nailed on, who also has pretty decent underlying numbers. Like, people keep coming to me and saying Neto's rubbish, but no one seems to say Neto's rubbish and here's why I think you should pick this 5.5 million midfielder instead. It's very easy to just look at someone's team and tell them that a player is poor or a rubbish pick, but no one ever seems to give you a better pick. And I don't think there are many at 5.5 that are better. Like Ramsey at Villa, I'm just not interested in, to be honest with you. So yeah, Neto's in there. Diaz stays. I think a lot of that depends on whether I have Robertson for game week 1. I really like Robertson. I think he's only second to Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of best defenders to have early on, but he is 7 million. And so the other 3 defenders in my team are all 6 million. Again, I could go Edison down to a 4.5, Gabriel down to a 4, upgrade Diaz to Robertson in defence, and then change Diaz to someone else. Like, I really like Saka. I put him as number 1 in my £8 million midfielder video from yesterday. But if I don't have Robertson, I will still triple up on Liverpool, and that's why Diaz is in there, or Diaz. It's really hard when you got them both in your team. The other thing is, if Jota is struggling with his hamstring injury, and I'm pretty sure Klopp has already said he won't make the Community Shield, that means Diaz should play quite a few minutes early on, and that just puts him a little bit higher up the list. Again, like I said on that video, I wasn't trying to sit on the fence, but Diaz, Saka, and Mount are all very close together, but Diaz with minutes could be really decent, right? And I think he'll play quite regularly anyway, but without Jota there, it just helps even more. So that's why he's in there. And Leon Bailey is picking up a little bit of traction in my eyes in terms of a pick. He's only 5 million, and again, he offers good rotation options. So if his fixtures aren't great, I can play Gabriel instead and just play more of a kind of 5-3-2. Because I've got 2 forwards. But I just like the idea of having him for that Bournemouth away fixture in particular in game week 1. I actually don't think that Villa's opening fixtures are as good as other people are saying. I think quite quickly they get pretty poor. But as a 5 million option, it might be worth just spending that extra 0.5. Because some people have got 2 4.5 million midfielders on their bench. If you could stretch to getting Bailey instead, if he looks... I don't want to say nail, because I don't know if he would be completely nailed, but I do think he's got a good chance of getting good minutes early on. And there's a lot of Villa fans that also seem to think the same. And I've even had a look at some articles from football writers, not FPL writers, football writers, and they are saying that Bailey looks good pre-season. So it could be him and Coutinho behind Watkins. And I think for 5 million as a punt against Bournemouth away on the opening day, that's really nice. And like I said, if the fixtures get bad or he does lose his place, then I can always play Gabriel instead. Obviously, I'll want to be sure to have Bailey in my squad to begin with, but that's why he's in there. I just think for 0.5 million extra, he could be a lot better than those 4.5 million midfielders as long as he gets minutes. Okay, so up front, I've got Jesus and Haaland. I know they're super popular picks, but to be honest, for the most part, I don't base my decisions on that. If I think they're good and they're 1% owned, I'll put them in. If I think they're good and they're 90% owned, I'll put them in. The idea that you have to go different to win FPL is flawed, and so therefore, if you think Jesus and Haaland are good picks, just put them in. Don't worry if everyone else owns them, because not literally everyone else will own them anyway. I did have Saka originally. I mean, I could just switch the money from Jesus to Saka and play 4-5-1, but I do like the fact that Jesus takes up a forward spot, because it means you can get like a 4.5 million midfielder like Andreas Pereira versus all the 4.5 million forwards, which at the moment are just non-playing options. Transfers and loan moves might change that, and obviously if it does, we'll talk about that in future videos. But right now, I do like Jesus taking up a forward spot, and I think in terms of goal threat, forget about who might get penalties at Arsenal. In terms of goal threat, Jesus is going to be right up there, and he is going to be the primary goal scorer this year. And I just think he's going to link up really well. And he has been scoring goals in pre-season, which I know full well does not matter, but we're all human, right? It does help us in our decisions. Okay, Jesus has scored a few goals pre-season. He's looking good. He's ready to go. He's in my team. The other player is Haaland. Now, I did have Kane originally. I got to be honest, I'm quite close on Kane and Haaland. I'm not entirely sure. I did that video, though, on is Erling Haaland essential, and that is when I made the switch, because I think the captaincy rotation between him and Salah is looking pretty good. I do think after Haaland plays Nottingham Forest, which is game week 5, there could be a case to be made to maybe switch to Harry Kane, possibly, or put the money into midfield and go for Son. I'm open to that, but I want to wait and see. I think if Haaland is going to be fit and start the season, and obviously we'll see that with Community Shield, how he gets on against Liverpool, then that Bournemouth at home fixture in game week 2 just looks so enticing, and so much of the decision is based on that game week. Obviously, he's got really good fixtures afterwards as well. Man City will score plenty of goals, I'm sure, and he'll be a huge part of that. But that game week 2 fixture is hard to kind of look or go against, I think. Whereas if Kane's fixtures were switched, maybe Chelsea in game week 1, where you could captain Salah, and then in game week 2 he had Southampton at home, maybe I would go for Kane instead. And look, I'm open to switching back, because I think you know exactly what you're going to get from Kane. He and Spurs are already doing really well Davern pre-season. Conte's going to get a whole pre-season out of most of his team as well. So Kane is a brilliant pick. You just cannot have them all. Or can you? Let's look at a 3 premium draft. So I wanted to talk about the 3 premium player draft conversation, right? Because a lot of people are looking at going for it. I could have milked it and done a whole separate 3 premium player draft video, but I didn't want to do that because I didn't want people to think that that's what I was looking at. That's why I've done my actual draft first, and now I'm talking about this. The one thing I will say this season is I am open to it for a couple of reasons. One, I just think it looks a lot better than when people were going for Ronaldo, Lukaku and Salah last year. I was always against that and it didn't work. I do think it looks slightly better this season. And also because of that early wild card, if it does go wrong, you can at least use that and not be at a massive disadvantage because of the unlimited transfers over the World Cup period, right? So this is what I've come up with. Obviously, there's lots of different ways of doing it. I didn't want to massively change my actual draft just to show you what the actual subtle differences are. So for this one, there's not really a bench. Now, possibly, if Andreas Pereira is going to play regularly in a fairly attacking position for Fulham, we'll have to wait and see how attacking they actually play because they might be cautious given they're in the Premier League, they want to survive, etc. He is at least an option that can come off the bench, and if De Silva can nail down a place at Brentford, we might have another decent kind of 4.5 million midfielder as well. Again, expectations have to be low for those positions, but there's potential there anyway, at least, right? We've still got kind of a big at the back formation, 5 at the back, but I've had to put Dunk and Tomiyasu in because obviously there's less money to go around when you upgrade Jesus to Harry Kane. And I do think it's easier to make these drafts with Kane instead of Son. And that is one thing I wanted to say. People act like 3 premium player drafts have no disadvantages because no matter what Salah does, no matter what Haaland does, you've got them. But realistically, you can only fit in one of Kane or Son. And look what happened last season, right? At one stage, everyone went for Son. Kane did really well. They switched, then Kane did really badly, and Son just kept on smashing it. And that's the problem, right? You can have these 3 premium players, but if Kane blanks and Son's the one smashing it in, you've actually disadvantaged yourself in 2 ways, right? You've got the wrong Spurs player and you've reduced the value in other positions in your team. So again, drafts are always going to have advantages and disadvantages. And even if you put Son in, if Kane's then the one that smashes it, it's the same scenario. If you put Son, Kane and Salah and Haaland smashes it, same scenario, right? So you get the idea. It's not perfect. I think Tomiyasu and Dunk as 4.5 million options are perfectly good though. Obviously Dunk against Man United away is not necessarily great to start the season off. I would expect Man United to score in that game. But after that, the fixtures are pretty good up until kind of game week 8. And after that, you're probably looking at maybe a wild card anyway. So I think Dunk is someone you have to play every week. Isn't too bad at all. Obviously, injuries could be annoying with that bench, but we've already spoken about that. And we know that the Arsenal fixtures are good as well. And then we've got a 4.5 million goalkeeper because obviously you have to make some sacrifices somewhere. There's other ways you could do it, okay? You could put Luis Diaz from 8 million down to like a Martinelli at 6 million, for example, and then use 2 million to upgrade your defence. So I do think it's viable, but I still don't think it's the best way to play. I just feel like there's so much expectations then on those premium players to do well. And they're priced at that price point, like 11.5 million or above, because we do expect them to regularly get points. But if they don't, like if Kane's not smashing kind of maybe 7 to 10 points a week, which I know doesn't sound like much, but to do that consistently over 5 to 6 weeks is fairly difficult for a lot of players, then I think you will lose out by taking that money out of other positions. So if you look at this graphic that I put up here, on the left is what I had in my other team, and on the right is what I've had to put in to get Harry Kane. Now, I don't think Leon Bailey to De Silva is that big of an issue because you could have two 4.5 million bench midfielders anyway. And you could argue that Gabriel down to Tomiyasu is not that bad either. But Ederson and Diaz, down to Meslier and Dunk isn't great. And yes, you get Harry Kane, but is Jesus going to be that far behind Kane to warrant the rest of the downgrades? I'm not sure. And I'm sure for those of you that are putting most of your money in the first 11 and having a cheap bench and only having 2 premiums, if you then do the same kind of downgrades to get Kane, it probably gets even worse. So for those of you with like Robertson and Trent and Cancelo and James and Chilwell, having to then go down to kind of 4.5 million defenders, I just think the value, as we've discussed pretty much from day one of FPL launching this year, is in those kind of more expensive defenders. So I just think you lose out on too much. But the difference is last year I was really against it. This year, not so much. And if it does work out, if Salah, Haaland and whoever you pick from Kane or Son start smashing it early on, then you could be ahead of the crowd. But you can only captain one of them every week. And essentially, the value in those players is their captaincy. And because you've got 3 of them, you can only captain one, you lose a bit of that value. So it's not for me. I don't think it looks awful. If you want to go for it, do it. And let me know down below if you can come up with a better way to fit those 3 premiums in. So there we go. I do like to talk through kind of advantages, disadvantages and strategy when I go through my draft. So hopefully you found it useful. If you did, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Plenty more content throughout pre-season and of course for all 38 game weeks of the season as well. And trying to hit 300,000 subscribers before the game week 1 deadline, which would be amazing. Leave me a comment below as well. Let me know what you thought of my own draft. Are you going for a 3 premium draft or do you think it leaves you too exposed in other areas? Leave a comment down below and I'll try and get back to as many as possible. Otherwise, like I said, plenty more content to come through pre-season starting tomorrow where I'll see you with another video. I'll catch you then.